3 decades of scientific thought regarding the safety of dye commonly used in MRIs has been upended, but odds are you haven't heard much about it. Today we begin with an important follow-up to a story we first brought you last year. We told the distressing case of Chuck Norris and his wife Gena, who became critically ill after her MRIs. After our original report aired, health bodies in the U.S. and many other countries made major changes. So why don't you know more about them? Chuck Norris and his wife Gena are now suing McKesson Corporation and other companies related to gadolinium MRI dye. Dozens of gadolinium poisoning claims have been filed nationwide.
I want to try this case in the public because they would love for it to remain in the shadows and not be talked about.
Windy today, but it's beautiful.
We first told you their story last June. Their nightmare began when Gena had 3 MRIs in 1 week to evaluate her rheumatoid arthritis and ended up in the ER over and over.
By the 4th, 5th, 6th night, the burning just kept traveling, and I would go in and they'd say, well, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know, I don't feel good, and I'm burning. That's all I can tell you is I'm burning all over. I feel like I have acid everywhere in my tissues. I'm on fire.
Doctors didn't consider that Gena might have been poisoned by gadolinium, the toxic heavy metal in a dye injected into her for the MRIs. After researching scientific literature and connecting to patients online, Gena told her husband she knew what was wrong.
When we got to the hospital in Houston, I said, I'm only going to be able to tell you this one time, and I need you to listen to me very closely. I have been poisoned with gadolinium, or by gadolinium, and we don't have much time to figure out how to get this out of my body, or I'm going to die.
I can take her anywhere in the world. I'm blessed enough to have the money to do that. But where do I take her?
They only found help with alternative medicine doctors who discovered Gena's gadolinium levels were literally off the charts. Healing has taken several years and $2 million of treatments not covered by insurance.
But it's worth it.
We caught up with the Norrises again at their Texas ranch, where Gena is still in intensive treatment.
Like I've said before, we're all broken. We are broken. If I were to stop any of those things with gadolinium deposition disease, it's lurking in my body and it talks to me. If I am exposed to things or under too much stress, I can feel very, very symptomatic, but I'm still healing.
If you had to explain in just a paragraph or so what this lawsuit is about, what would you say?
This lawsuit is about a big cover-up by the drug companies that has resulted in a whole population of people who have been poisoned by gadolinium. There's internal documents that go back decades that show that the companies knew about the risks of gadolinium.
Todd Wahlberg is the Norris' attorney. He attended an FDA safety meeting that was scheduled shortly after our story aired, one advocates had pressed for years. Gena's case was brought up.
The disconnect noted in Gena Norris's statement is so true all across this country every single day.
At the conclusion of that September hearing, there was a vote held, and the FDA committee voted 13-1 in favor of requiring additional warnings.
The only no vote came from one FDA advisor who said the recommended warnings weren't strong enough.
When a patient finally does get tested and is found to have gadolinium retention, but there is no FDA-approved antidote, what does that patient do?
There's been a dramatic evolution in thought since MRI dye was introduced 30 years ago. Doctors and the FDA used to insist gadolinium was quickly urinated out of the body. But in 2006, internal FDA documents show scientists recognized gadolinium was linked to a deadly disease that causes thickening and tightening of the skin and organs, nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, or NSF. In 2007, the FDA added a serious black box warning, but only for patients with weak kidneys. In 2010, an expanded warning about repeat MRIs. Then in 2015, the FDA also acknowledged there could be risks to people with normal kidneys.
Recent studies conducted in people and animals have confirmed that gadolinium can remain in the brain, even in individuals with normal kidney function. Available information does not identify any adverse health effects.
By then, injured patients like Sharon Williams were networking online. She had 5 MRIs with gadolinium over several years and got sicker each time.
So my symptoms got dramatically worse after dose 4. We thought there had to be something wrong with my brain, so I had dose 5 for a brain MRI, and literally all hell broke loose after that. I mean, it was terrible.
Meaning what?
Meaning that's when all the symptoms went crazy. I mean, I couldn't begin to tell you how severe some of the symptoms were as far as pain, spasms, problems with my blood pressure.
How did you figure out it was this gadolinium?
In 2014, I had part of the thyroid gland removed and gadolinium was in it, 51 months after my last MRI.
Williams contacted the FDA regularly starting in 2012, presenting scientific research and asking for help, only to be told the matter was under study. It's taken years for major health bodies to acknowledge major issues. In May of last year, the FDA stepped up warnings again, saying gadolinium is not only retained in the brain, but in body organs too, but it downplayed any risks. Shortly after, Europe and Japan banned most uses and types of the most problematic gadolinium dyes. The FDA decided on a different approach last December, deciding not to issue a ban in the U.S., insisting gadolinium benefits outweigh any risks. Instead, the FDA ordered new safety studies. According to the FDA, the bigger problem occurs with the types of dyes called linear, which stay in the body longer and in larger amounts. The FDA says there's more risk with Omniscan or Optimark than Eovist, Magnavist, or Multihance. The lowest levels remain in the body after Dotarim, Gatavist, and Prohance, according to the FDA. You might think all of this would make national headlines since MRIs are so common. There are 30 million MRIs in the U.S. each year. But we had to hunt pretty hard to find the latest safety information on the FDA website. It wasn't on the main MRI page. When we clicked over to MRI safety, it wasn't there either. And it didn't show up when we searched MRI dye safety or MRI dye. We finally found it when we searched gadolinium safety. Gadolinium manufacturers say they're following all FDA recommendations. Some are phasing out so-called linear gadolinium dyes. The makers firmly deny any cover-up and say they've taken action and followed FDA rules as soon as they've learned of any safety concerns. The Norrises say the FDA hasn't done enough.
Well, they made some acknowledgement. They've moved the needle a little bit, but they haven't moved it enough.
Some people think because your name is on this cause, that's what's helped it get attention, and maybe that's what even helped spur the FDA action after so many years.
I really don't think so. I think it's her, because she had a good way of explaining what is going on. I am just her companion. I am trying to keep her healthy. And that's what I've been doing, for several years now.
5 years.
But the thousands of others that can't afford this, this is what bothers me, is seeing, I'm so great for my wife, but I want to see these people being taken care of too.
I don't need this stress, but it's become so personal to the victims that have, either died or that are suffering in silence and that don't have a voice. Thankfully, we have a platform, and as far as I'm concerned, I'll be their worst nightmare until they do the right thing. I'm not going away. I'm not going away.
McKesson told us that since it distributes but doesn't manufacture gadolinium, it's never been involved in the FDA approval process. The FDA declined our interview request but said the patient medication guides are nowhere close to being finished 4 months after they were ordered. The FDA is considering adding new MRI dye warnings for children.